Picture a software engineer in Austin, 34 years old, earning $145,000 a year. He saves diligently, contributes to his 401k, carries no credit card debt. But every time he checks his net worth, there's a restlessness he can't quite explain. Not because he's poor, because he has no idea whether that number is good or bad. Now compare him to a teacher in the same city, also 34 years old, earning $58,000 a year. But this teacher has one thing the engineer doesn't. She knows exactly what number she's supposed to be chasing every year. And because she knows her target, she sleeps better than people making nearly triple her salary. Same city, nearly triple the income gap. But only one of them actually knows where they stand. This isn't about how much you make. This is about whether you have a clear finish line, or whether you're just running without knowing where to. Let's start with the data. Research on household wealth in America consistently shows that most working-age adults can't quickly answer a simple question. What net worth should you have right now, at your age? Most people guess. Most people answer with a feeling, not a number. Read that again. People who check their bank balance every week don't have a single figure to tell them whether they're on track or falling behind. Why does this happen? Because we're raised to focus on income, not accumulation. We're taught to ask, what's your salary, not what's your net worth. But salary only shows what flows in. Net worth shows the result of every decision you've made for years. This is where the formula comes in. Simple, brutal, and used by financial planners for decades. Take your age, multiply it by your gross annual income, then divide by 10. That's your rough net worth target right now. Age 34. Income $145,000. Multiply. 34 times 145,000 equals 4,930,000. Divide by 10. $493,000. That's the engineer's target. Age 34, income $58,000. Multiply. 34 times 58,000 equals 1,972,000. Divide by 10. $197,200. That's the teacher's target. The math doesn't lie. But here's the uncomfortable part. The engineer, earning more than double, has an actual net worth of just $61,000, far below target. The teacher, earning far less, has an actual net worth of $203,000, slightly above target. I am not done yet, because these raw numbers are just the start. What matters more is why this gap exists, when both of them would describe themselves as diligent savers. Let's break down the mechanism. The age times income divided by 10 formula carries a hidden assumption that a certain percentage of your income is actually being set aside into appreciating assets, not just parked somewhere and quietly eaten away by lifestyle inflation. The engineer makes more, but every time his salary rises, his spending rises right along with it. A bigger apartment, a car leased every 3 years, streaming subscriptions, meal kits, a premium gym membership, all piling up quietly. Every raise gets absorbed by a lifestyle that adjusts itself automatically. Nope, not over yet. Because there's a second layer, the engineer saves, but he saves into a regular savings account earning almost no interest, not into investments. His money is safe, but it isn't growing. The teacher, despite her smaller salary, automatically transfers 15% of her income into a retirement account every payday, before that money ever touches her main checking account. She never gets the chance to spend it, accidentally, because it's already gone before she even sees it. That's before we even get to compound interest. Over 30 years at a 7% average annual return, a consistent contribution of $725 a month, 15% of the teacher's salary grows to roughly $880,000. Meanwhile, passive savings with no investment, even with larger nominal deposits, only grows by the amount deposited, with almost no real growth once you account for inflation. Which brings us to 5 patterns that most often explain why people fall short of their age times income divided by 10 target. 1. They count bank savings as good enough, when money that isn't invested actually loses real value every year to inflation. 2. They raise their spending every time their salary rises instead of raising the percentage they invest. This is lifestyle inflation, and it is the number one silent killer of wealth accumulation. 3. They wait until income is more stable to start investing. When the earliest decade of a career is exactly when compound interest works hardest, because it has the most time to run. 4. They don't automate. Any financial decision that depends on, "I'll transfer it manually this month," almost always loses to short-term temptation. The system always beats willpower. 5. They compare themselves to neighbors or coworkers who look successful on the surface, instead of to their own target number. Real wealth whispers. Fake wealth screams. The person who looks the most successful at the office is often the one furthest from their own target. Now let's look at a second case, because this shows how the exact same formula can produce very different outcomes depending on one small decision made early on. Marcus and Terence, two cousins, born a year apart, raised in the same household, working in similar industries with nearly identical salaries throughout their careers. At 25, Marcus decided to automatically set aside 12% of his salary into an investment account, before he ever had the chance to adjust his lifestyle to his new income. Terence held off thinking, "I'll start investing once things are more stable," and didn't get truly consistent until age 35, 10 years of difference in start time. Over 30 years, by age 55, assuming the same average return, Marcus has a portfolio of roughly $612,000. Terence, despite saving the exact same percentage starting at 35, has only about $301,000. Nearly half. Same percentage. Nearly half the outcome. Not because Marcus was smarter or more disciplined, just because he gave his money more time to work. This isn't about being smarter with money. This is about intentionality. Making a conscious decision early instead of waiting for a better moment that never actually arrives. So how do you use the age times income divided by 10 formula for yourself? And what do you do if your number is far below target? This week, calculate your target number. Your age times your gross annual income divided by 10. Then calculate your actual net worth, every asset minus every debt. Compare the two numbers. Don't judge the result, just note the gap. This month, if the gap is large, don't try to close it all at once. Increase the automatic percentage going into investments by just 1 or 2%. Small enough to barely notice in daily spending, but enough to start bending the trend in the right direction. This quarter, audit your 3 largest recurring lifestyle expenses, not necessities, and ask of each one, if this disappeared tomorrow, would my quality of life actually change? If the answer is no, redirect that amount into your automatic investment percentage. This isn't financial advice. Consult a professional who understands your specific situation, especially if you're approaching a major decision like retirement or a career change. The age times income divided by 10 formula isn't a magic number to chase rigidly. It's a mirror. A mirror that shows whether your small decisions, year after year, have been moving you in the right direction or quietly pulling you away from where you meant to go. The engineer in Austin eventually did the math himself, and for the first time, that restlessness turned into clarity. Not because the problem was solved that same night, but because he finally knew exactly how far the gap was. And that's always better than not knowing at all. The number doesn't care how much you make. It only cares how intentionally you make every decision about it.